Happy Thursday and happy Halloween as Steve Sipple, Sean Callahan here for another edition of Husker Online Headlines. And Sip, before we get into the headlines, I do got to share a good Halloween memory I have of you. Do you remember when Bo Pelini at the press conference?
Yes, I remember.
Made the joke about kids dressing up in Steve Sipple masks for Halloween?
And he said they'd scare everybody.
They'd scare everybody. I mean, that was like legendary Pelini right there.
Yeah, it was actually kind of funny. Oh, and I also, before we talk ball, I should congratulate you on the Dodgers winning it all. Sean is a life. I mean, since I've known you, you've loved the Dodgers.
Oh, and it was torture. I was at the Lead Center.
What were you doing at the Lead
Center?
So
my wife purchased these tickets to the Encanto sing-along.
I'm sorry.
And here we are. And I go, Lisa,
I'm dreadfully sorry.
You know that this is like the game that the Dodgers could win the World Series. And she felt really bad about it. I went and, but they started out down 5-0.
I know.
So I wasn't really, I kind of looked at the score. Then I decided to turn it on. And then because I saw the bases were loaded.
What do you mean turn it on?
On my phone. So I had the whole fifth inning where they scored 5 runs. I had that on. And then
when Judge hit a home run.
Yeah, and this thing it went till 9:15 this show.
Yeah.
But we did get home and I was able to see like the last 3 or 4 innings and in the victory and everything. So good day to be a Dodger fan.
Yeah, and you're legit. I mean, you're not a bandwagoner. I can't remember knowing you when you didn't like the Dodgers.
Well, Chris Mad Dog Russo brought up a good point. He said that of all 4 major professional sports, the Dodgers are the best run professional sports team in all 4 major sports. And it's hard to argue with the winning and the consistency that they've had. They've only had 1 year, in like the last 16 years, they haven't made the playoffs.
I'm not qualified to judge that, but what you just said is remarkable, by the way. Say that again.
You said that they're the best run professional sports team and most successful.
What's the playoff run though?
Like 15, 16 years they've made it there's only been 1 year they didn't make the playoffs in like that period.
That's remarkable.
I mean, I've been married 14 years, been with my wife 16 years, and I know they've made the playoffs every year of those except 1.
And they're going to they'll get Mookie back, or
look at everybody back. I mean, they have a couple free
Freeman's
agents.
back, Ohtani's back,
Betts is back.
You build it around those guys.
Kike has a free agent. I mean, Juan Soto though will be the talk of the free agency. Like,
could you get Juan Soto from the Yankees?
I don't know if there's a lot of talk about him going to the Giants.
Ooh, right.
But the Yankees can't afford to lose him either. I mean, that's going to be interesting. But good day to be and I'm a Chiefs fan too. I'm kind of like, I grew up in the 90s around Nebraska football. I got to see a lot of championships. It's flip-flop. Now I get to see them on my professional sports teams with the Dodgers and the Chiefs. But let's get into it because we got a big football game this week. Headline number 1. Nebraska has its best chance versus UCLA to get bowl eligible since 2016 as Nebraska SIP finds itself in almost an identical position as it did a year ago. They're 5-3. They were 5-3 in November to start the year off last year. There were 4 toss-up games last year on that schedule. They were a 3-point favorite at Michigan State. They lost. They were a 1-point favorite at home against Iowa. They lost. They were a slight dog to Maryland, and they were a dog on the road to Wisconsin. They lost all 4 games. All point spreads were 7 points or less. I think we're looking at something pretty similar. Spread 7 points, Nebraska's favorite. USC, they're probably going to be a small dog on the road. Wisconsin, they might be a slight favorite at home. And Iowa, probably a slight dog on the road. So we're kind of looking at a similar road. What's different about this team that they can get it done this month?
Well, number 1's a quarterback. Now, the quarterback for Nebraska, Dylan Raiola, has had some turnover issues of late, but I don't look at him as a turnover issue. I look at him as a quarterback who's had turnover issues. I don't look at him as an issue. Okay, there's a big difference. So I think that you feel good about stability at that position. He's healthy. He's kind of done this, we saw an element of his game emerge last week, and it's critical. It's critical that he ran the ball against Ohio State. Here's why, Sean. Because what was Ohio State doing? I'm quizzing you. What were they doing defensively?
Playing man-free.
Yeah, pressure and man-free. You know what UCLA does? They play pressure and man-free. He'll get opportunities, I would think, in this game to scoot up field again. unless UCLA says, well, we just saw the Ohio State film. We can't let him do that. But as Matt Rule laid out this week, UCLA is a pressure man-free team. So he'll have opportunities. What else is different? I think this defense is as good for sure. And maybe Trent, oh God, Sean, you're going to kill me for saying this. But one game, it looks like they're trending in the right way because they have some guys going. It looks like they got Butler going now. Butler's healthy, Jamari.
And that's another headline coming up. So don't save your
stuff. So what, I mean, the difference between this year and last year, by the way, is this game. Going to Michigan State is much harder than playing UCLA, this version of UCLA on your home field. They can get this done. They should get it done. And then you might look at it kind of the team might feel a little different, a little freer as it goes forward.
All right. As we continue this opening headline discussion, HuskerOnline headlines brought to you on this opening headline by StayHome.Care. We've told you all about them on a regular HuskerOnline show. I want to tell you more about StayHome.Care. Your home, our care. Get accessible and personalized in-person care in the comfort of your own home, whether it's helping you with daily tasks like cleaning laundry and meal preparation, providing companionship, offering medication reminders, or assisting with personal care and errands. We're here to make life easier. They serve Omaha, Lincoln, and all of Nebraska. StayHome.Care is proud to announce it received the prestigious Home Healthcare Service Award for the second year in a row. It reaffirms their commitment to providing unparalleled care and support to individuals in the comfort of their own homes. Head to StayHome.Care to learn more. That's .care, not .com. Again, learn more at StayHome.Care or just call them at 402-205-2233. It's never too early to call. You might have some questions about this. You might say, you know what? Dad's not doing great. Mom's not doing great. I want to be prepared for that day when I might need some help. Give them a call, and they're there to help you get through those difficult days. Our heart is with you because we put our heart into everything we do. Your home, our care, StayHome.Care. I want to continue this opening headline discussion, Sip. When you look at these 4 games in November compared to last year's 4 games, would you say this is the easiest of the 8, or would you argue that Michigan State last year, with where that program was at, with an interim head coach, kind of off the rails in the season, was that an easier opportunity?
That seemed like that was this narrative going into Michigan State.
They played tough though.
Right. But the narrative didn't match what I saw on the field. No, this is easier. This is an easier game, but this is not. Yeah, now this is where we're going to butt heads a little bit. And this is where I butt heads with some people in our media corps. I don't regard this as an easy game. There are the people in our media corps will not like me saying that, but I don't regard this as easy. I didn't regard Michigan State last year as easy. It was sold to us that way. But what did I tell you as we watched the game in East Lansing? I was sitting, I remember what I told you, Sean. I remember distinctly. Nebraska's getting whipped up front by Michigan State. These teams are tough. They're not okay. UCLA, Sean, lost 27-11 to Penn State in Happy Valley. Game at halftime. That was a game at halftime. LSU game at halftime. Lost by 4 to Minnesota. Should have beat
the Gophers scored in the last minute.
Right. Beat Rutgers. Scored 35. Now gave up 32. Gave up 32, but scored 35. Why do we think this is going to be so easy?
We had a beat writer from Minnesota on Big Red Wrap Up this week, or from UCLA, and he said, look, they've played 7 games, and the 2 outcomes that have thrown off the projections were Minnesota and Indiana. Like when you looked at their schedule to start the year, everyone thought they'd beat Hawaii. They thought Indiana was a winning opportunity. LSU lost, Oregon lost, Penn State lost. Minnesota was a winning opportunity, and they thought Rutgers was. So this is a team in a lot of respects that, you know, has played a tougher schedule than anticipated. I don't think people thought that Indiana was going to be what they are.
Undefeated.
And
you mean undefeated?
And Minnesota's improved.
Right. Well, can we just put it simply? 3 of UCLA's losses are to undefeated teams. Okay. Indiana, Oregon, and Penn State. I mean, what more do I need to say? Now, I get it. I know what people are saying right now, literally as they're watching this. Shut up, Sipple. They're not that good. Quit making UCLA sound great. I'm not trying to make them sound great. I'm trying to make them sound representable and they are represented.
Well, they returned most of their team, and they beat Boise State in a bowl game last year. And one of the reasons why Deshaun Foster was the pick as the head coach was they wanted to keep the roster. Because if they didn't hire Deshaun Foster, and let's say they hired Tony White,
good point, Sean,
they were going to lose 30, 40 players. Right. And they knew that this transition to the Big Ten was going to be extremely difficult at that point because their NIL, and we talked about this in the offseason, was extremely limited.
Oh my God. It was under $1 million. Their NIL pot was like 880,000.
And equate that to
does that make sense?
The cost of items in LA.
Yeah. You couldn't pay for Dylan Raiola. He was not, you couldn't get him.
You couldn't even get your team a deal in like low income housing with that kind of money in LA.
But anyway, now to balance this discussion.
That's Jerry Neuheisel right there next to.
Yes, it is. It looks like his dad. Here's the deal. Here's the balance. They average 64.7 yards in rushing offense, 64.7. Okay. They're terrible. They're the 133rd in the country. They're horrible in the red zone on both defense and offense. One of the worst teams in the country in the red zone on both sides of the ball. They're very, as you would say, limited. But the schedule, all you have to do if you disrespect them too much is look at their results, look at the schedule. It's not that bad.
It will be interesting just to see just the wear and tear that they've done. I mean, think about their travel.
That's a factor.
They've played in Hawaii this year.
Mm-hmm.
They've played in Baton Rouge, and they've played at Penn State, and they played at Rutgers.
That's a lot.
In the history of this game, I don't know if you could ever find a team that's done more mileage heading into the first weekend in November than that.
5 years ago, 10 years ago, I would have dismissed that. I don't dismiss it anymore. I just would dismiss a lot of those sort of ancillary discussions, the psychology, the travel. Oh, come on, those kids show up ready to play. No, it takes a toll.
Well, like we saw their truck at the Graduate on Wednesday. Their equipment truck was outside the hotel. I mean, the amount of preparation and work that goes to traveling, and I don't know if they come out on Thursday, if they're a Friday travel, but some of those West Coast teams will travel on Thursdays.
Strange times in college sports. It's just come on. It's strange
and
what they're making these teams do.
We didn't even talk about this. Eric Bieniemy is their offensive coordinator.
Yeah, and that's something to talk about. Eric Bieniemy. Bill Bush said this on a radio show this morning, my radio show this week. That they don't really run an offense. They run plays. It's not an offense. It's plays. They'll have stuff that they have not shown. The early part of this game is going to be critical. Look for UCLA to surprise Nebraska with some stuff.
You know where you can win, though? Up front. And then it doesn't matter.
Right. Well, that's what you hope. But they don't really run an offense. They run plays. And he comes from the Andy Reid school. You're very familiar with Andy Reid. So it'll be kind of interesting early in the game to see if they can surprise Nebraska with something or something. His
story of coaching, though, going from Mahomes coach right under Reid to the Commanders to now back to the college ranks
it's fascinating. He's formidable. I mean, that's one thing in their favor. He'll have some things that Nebraska's not ready for.
I've always thought if Deion left Colorado, he would make sense there for them to go back to Colorado. If he wants it, maybe he doesn't want that though.
Oh, go back to Colorado.
To be the head coach.
Yeah.
But there's something there that we don't know why he never got that NFL head coach job, because you see the best coordinators in the league always get, like Zach Taylor, Brian Callahan. I mean, two guys that we know, head coaches in the NFL.
Enemy's a hardcore guy. That's one thing. I mean, he's a no nonsense, probably a little tough on players type guy.
Old school.
Yeah.
All right.
Deion's like that too.
Before we go to headline number 2, HuskerOnline headlines brought to you by Ellerbrock-Norris. They've been helping Nebraska business owners protect their purpose for over 120 years with risk management solutions built for local businesses. Ellerbrock-Norris partners with you on commercial insurance, group benefits, business exit planning, safety, and more. Start thinking long-term with your business and create a risk management strategy to protect it. Are your employee benefit costs going through the roof? Talk to Ellerbrock. Are your workplace injuries skyrocketing your workers' compensation costs? Talk to Ellerbrock. Hoping to retire in the next 10 years and sell the business to family, key employees, or even a friendly competitor? Talk to Ellerbrock. Ellerbrock-Norris is helping you protect your purpose, whether it's your business and the employees in it, your life outside of work, or your future retirement goals. Head to ellerbrock-norris.com/HuskerOnline today to get your free risk evaluation. Thank you to Ellerbrock-Norris for sponsoring us here on Husker Online Headlines. Let's take it to number 2. Jamari Butler's presence up front changed the look of the black shirts. And, you know, I felt like the Colorado game, Sip, that was the defense we saw when they just suffocated Colorado, and they had no answer for that. Well, Ohio State came into this game last week, and they still have allowed the fewest amount of QB pressures in America, and Nebraska made them look like an FCS line at times.
Ohio State was 1 for 10 on third down. That's one way to.
And their only third down conversion was a QB sneak where there was a false start not called.
It did
just get that.
It did go for 6 yards though.
Will Howard. It went for 6 yards.
It went for 6 yards.
Louise, what the hell are we doing? Well, because there was a fall. Coach Rule, I think, was so upset that the false start wasn't called. I mean, Nebraska's players, I think, even thought it was a false start.
Back to Jamari Butler, played his best game, probably of the season. I mean, certainly. Well, I can tell you that statistically is his best game of the season. 5 tackles. I think 2 or 3 of them were for loss. He had a sack, and he was just disruptive all day. And I just thought, if you can get Jamari Butler playing at that level alongside Nash and Ty Robinson, that was my vision for the whole year. But as you've pointed out, Jamari was banged up. He was a little banged up. Tony White talked about that this week, the defensive coordinator. But it looks like he's back to full health. And if you can keep getting that from him and then combine that with some of these other guys that seem to be rising a little bit, like MJ Sherman played very, very strong at Ohio State. He seems like he's trending in the right direction. Deshaun Singleton, the safety, played his best game as a Nebraska player. It's been a good defense, except for Indiana. I refuse to call them elite at this point because they gave up 56 to Indiana, but it looks they should have garnered a lot of confidence, and it's already a good unit.
Yeah, to do that to Ohio State, to stop their run, to pressure. But the key is, can they mentally be at that level every week?
Here we go with the psychology.
Can they not say, okay, we're favored. It's UCLA. They're 2-5.
Right.
We got this. No, you need to act like, I mean, the whole state was fired up and angry at this team last week, and the team played like that. I mean, everybody in this state challenged and questioned what was going on after Indiana.
They certainly did.
And they came out and they played like a bunch of angry people.
They lost. And a lot of people don't like this conversation where we heap too much praise.
They were 25.5-point dog, though. Winning is never a question. Like, when you're a 25.5-point dog, who wins? Like,
I know,
and they almost pulled off one of the biggest upsets since 1959.
I'm telling you what I hear from people.
I know, but whoever thought they were going to win?
They don't want us to celebrate losses.
I'm not celebrating it, but I'm being realistic. They were the largest point spread underdog in every freaking college football game in America, and they almost won. Like, that in itself is remarkable.
They almost won.
Tell me how many 25.5-point dogs win.
Well, I know.
Very few.
Right.
And I'm not calling it immoral, but they surprised everybody.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about that. It was a huge I mean, I don't know, and I don't know what to make of it. I don't know, and I think you can read too much into Indiana. There's a danger in doing that. Probably can read too much into this too. So where are they? Where are they mentally?
What I don't read into, though, is the way the defense played. If they play like that up front and win at the line of scrimmage, like they did against Colorado, like they did against Ohio State.
Where was it against Indiana?
For some reason, they just didn't step it up to that level. I mean, like, I don't get it either.
Yeah, it's strange. Now Ohio State, go back to the rushing total, 64 yards rushing. That's ridiculous. That is now 1 for 10 on third down surprises me, but so does the rushing total. And that is just Nebraska, as you said, winning up front. I don't know where Ohio State's at, except I'd put it this way to you. You can make a case that Ohio State's the 4th best team in the league right now. Oregon, Indiana, Penn State, Ohio State. That's where I'd go right now.
If they lose at Penn State
Saturday,
and couple that with their Oregon loss and how they played against Nebraska, the first playoff poll comes out on Tuesday. I tend to believe it will be Indiana versus them as a play-in game at that point.
Probably.
Like the winner of that game.
And there you go. There's the schedule. Oh, that Indiana game is not till late.
Yeah, they have I mean, it's a great schedule with Purdue and Northwestern after Penn State. I mean, they're not going to lose those 2 games. But I mean, and what if the unthinkable if Michigan beats them?
Don't talk about that. I mean, that's I don't know. I mean, listen, if I was an Ohio State fan, I'd be a little worried right now because of the way they played up front on both sides.
Look at the non-conference schedule there. Read those teams out.
Akron, Western Michigan, Marshall.
Mr. Sipple, you're on the playoff committee. What are your thoughts of Ohio State's non-conference schedule?
Yeah, they're on the ropes. They're on the ropes.
I mean, seriously, they have nothing in the non-conference. Now, they were supposed to play, to be fair, I was talking to Steve Hellwagon, a longtime Ohio State writer, about this. They had a game with Washington lined up. And when the word of Washington joining the league happened, they dropped the series. And then they replaced it with one of those teams.
Now, we're not an Ohio State podcast, but that game at Penn State on Saturday, how do you think how nervous do you think Ohio State fans are right now?
It's in Happy Valley.
They're nervous. They haven't run the ball well for 6 quarters.
Well, they were nervous on Saturday.
Real nervous in that stage.
I mean, it was like you could feel just
the tension.
Oh, because it's national championship or bust there. And Nebraska literally almost went in there and destroyed all their hopes and dreams.
There was heavy tension.
All right,
moving on. Sean.
Let's take it on to headline number 3. But before we get to that, Husker Online headlines, Stephen M. Sipple, was brought to you by Mando.
Oh,
and let me tell you, Sipple got a package of Mando.
You gave me a bag of Mando stuff,
and you kind of like gave me this look. You're trying to give me some hints, and now you're thanking me.
Well, when you gave me the bag, I was thinking, do I not smell good or something? Is that why Sean's giving me? And I was taking each individual item out of the bag, and it was all odor based stuff. And I thought, oh God, maybe Sean's so nice he just wouldn't tell me I smell, so he's just giving me a bag of stuff. But I will tell you this. That Mando, I said it the other day, the Mando soap is next level. Like, it is legit.
You feel like you're at like a Ritz-Carlton spa.
Yeah, or better. and the deodorant, like the spray deodorant, it's incredible. Like, yeah, that Mando stuff, I can vouch for it. High level. And
so we've got, if you've never tried it, we've got a great deal. Give it a try. See if you agree with Mr. Sipple here on this. We're going to get you the Mando starter pack. It comes with a deodorant stick, cream tube deodorant, plus 2 free products of your choice, body wash, deodorant wipes, whatever you want to go with, and free shipping. This is already a discounted package. And then we're going to give you another $5 off that. Use the promo code Husker at shopmando.com. Again, that's promo code Husker at shopmando.com. Choose the Mando starter pack. Use that promo code, and you'll get what's equated to about 40% off the total cost of that. And if you like it, you're set. You can't go wrong.
I'll always have Mando.
Thank you again to Mando for sponsoring us here on Husker Online Headlines. Okay, headline 3: Dylan Raiola, the runner. How about that? And
well,
I think, we teased this a little bit earlier, but
yeah, we did.
I think there's a chance that we could see that again. And look, he had 4 runs for 56 yards on those scramble plays.
Yeah, that's
and
about right.
These weren't Frank Solich, Jamal Lord QB draws out of the shotgun. I mean, these were passing plays that were overcovered, and there was nobody accounting for the quarterback, and he ran.
Yeah, and it was important, and he can do it. But again, it's just, I guess the simple way to explain it to people, like if I'm explaining this to my mom, is when a team's playing man pressure and they're manned up, they play man-to-man against your receivers and backs, then sometimes those receivers are running downfield and the defender has their back to the line of scrimmage. The quarterback sees that and says, he's not even looking at me. I'm going to run. And that's what happened on a 38-yard run. I mean, sometimes you see it in games, pro and college, where a quarterback's running and literally a defensive back doesn't even know it because they're manned up on the receiver. So it could be very important, as I touched on earlier, because UCLA, pressure team, man team.
And I use the example, Garrett Gilbert, 2010 Texas game.
Yeah, Garrett Gilbert. What are you talking
He was not a runner at all.
Right.
No signs of running.
What
But
was Bo playing?
Nebraska played that too high man-to-man look.
Yep.
Nobody accounted for the quarterback.
And he sped up field.
And he ran for a bunch of yards because they would run those 4 go routes. And then there's a big area of open real estate.
Absolutely.
And he just took off and ran.
It could be, on a team like Nebraska that's looking for yardage any way it can get it, that could be important. But here's the thing: UCLA saw it. They saw what happened. They'll be mindful of it. Here's the thing about Dylan, though, I want to add, and I've told you this from the beginning. Dylan is athletic. He's not a running quarterback, but he's athletic. 6'3", 230. When he gets barreling up the field, it looks pretty good. He's athletic, so he can slide. There's some quarterbacks you don't want to see slide because they're not very athletic.
Well, Dylan was a baseball player too.
Dylan was a really good.
Well, to be fair, Chubba Purdy was a baseball player too.
Good point. And Chubba couldn't slide. I mean, there's that slide's hard, but Dylan does it well.
Sliding on field turf, I would think, would be harder than grass too.
For sure. You got to, yeah. It's almost something I hope they work on. But anyway, Dylan, that's something that emerged last week that's really important. So,
are you worried about the shoulder on Dylan? I mean, it was
like that picture.
When
I look at that picture, I'm a little worried.
He suffered a slight stinger on that throwing shoulder, and just the early look on his throws. It's something to watch. I think
it's just something to watch. I haven't heard anything to suggest it's an issue. Nothing.
Now there was a lot of people that thought that he might have had an ankle injury, but I think he debunked that.
Sure did debunk. Look, he didn't look like he was.
I mean, there are people that spoke authoritatively like he was battling him. I mean, I think every player though is nicked around and banged and bruised. I mean,
yeah, hardly anybody that's played 7 or 8 games is in perfect health right now.
Do you think we'll see, sticking on the running game topic, do you think we'll see any more Heinrich Haarberg this week? Or like,
I don't know, what was it? Three plays last week? That's it?
I feel like he needs to kind of break some things and get into a rhythm before they go with it more.
Sean, it's interesting that you bring it up because it was a pervasive topic going into the Ohio State game and it never really materialized. He played 3 snaps. So I don't know how to answer your question. I don't know. I think that Dylan's runs affect that. His ability to get upfield in those scrambles affects that conversation. I've always thought it was a little forced, that conversation about Heinrich, but I was more open-minded to it because of Nebraska's offensive struggles. They did get the ball. They started running the ball pretty well in the second half of the Ohio State game. I'd be more inclined if I were Satterfield Rule to try to keep that going, the running back running game, not do a bunch of crazy personnel stuff. Just try to win with what they call the conventional running back running game. That's what I
would like to see though, like the Ty Robinson wrinkle. I just think there's some potential there.
Absolutely. I give the ball to him
to ignite the stadium.
Give the ball to him.
If there's like a red zone opportunity
100
to dump it to him, kind of like what Illinois did in Nebraska,
or hand the ball to him.
Can you imagine the stadium if they did something with Ty Robinson?
I can't imagine it because I've seen it. I've seen the pass to Crouch and Sue. I saw the Sue play. I saw the pass to Crouch. I mean, I can't imagine it because I've seen it, and it would be wild. It would
actually be. I would almost love to see Nash and Ty back there together, lead blocking.
Yeah, I would too. No,
it didn't work, but
it did. Glad you acknowledge that. It didn't work.
They also tried to jump from like 10 feet out.
Yeah, they thought the ball was going to be spotted at the half-yard line. It was spotted at the 2. Now, and I'm not going to be critical of Dante Dowdell. He does a good, Sean. He's great around the goal line. He's not good around the goal line. He's great around the goal line. I love Dowdell around the goal line, and I love that they give.
He gets his pad level low.
Gets his pad level low, and he's ferocious. Dante Dowdell say what you want about him. He gets his share of criticism, but around the goal line, he's ferocious. You see the touchdown he scored.
He's getting better with reps, though. You see, like, I mean, the way he ran on Saturday, there were some moments where, he was close.
Absolutely. Dante Dell to me is a classic example of a player who's we want him to be a finished product, but he's not a finished product. He's a sophomore, and sometimes sophomore running backs are pretty finished. They are finished products, some of them aren't. And he's not. And I still say stick with him and let him develop, because there's so much potential there, because not every running back, as you know, brings that sort of explosion. He's an explosive runner.
All right, before we go to headline number 4, HuskerOnline headlines brought to you by CHI Health. When you need heart care, know you are in good hands with CHI Health Clinic Heart Institute providers. They're offering the community's most advanced heart care at CHI Health Nebraska Heart, the region's only dedicated heart hospital, located at 91st and Pine Lake Road, just north of Highway 2. The experts at CHI Health Nebraska Heart put our heart and soul, plus the latest in cardiac and vascular technologies, into caring for our community. The highly specialized team works closely with you to get you back on your feet with a major heart event or chronic cardiac condition, offering the highest level of care to keep your heart burning strong. Our heart care extends beyond Lincoln, though, too, with expert cardiovascular care at all of our 14 hospitals and heart experts who live and travel to over 40 communities across Nebraska, Southwest Iowa, and northern Kansas. Nearly 700,000 people will die of heart disease every year. Learn your heart's real age by taking an online quiz at chihealth.com/heart risk. Thank you to CHI Health for sponsoring us here on Husker Online Headlines. All right, headline number 4. Chase Lofton headlines a big recruiting weekend for Nebraska. There are a number of high-profile visitors that will be making their way in, but Chase Lofton, being an in-state name, a 4-star Florida State commit, I think it's extremely notable, and I do think there's a really high likelihood that he's going to flip to Nebraska.
Pretty interesting conversation in that it was fairly predictable, right? With Florida State having one win this year, Florida State one win. Sean, I can remember you talking back in September about if Florida State keeps struggling, would Lofton be back in the picture? It's part of the reason why you never stop recruiting these kids. You don't stop. When they commit, you don't stop. Or you don't completely stop. So, I mean, this is a tight end state, and here's another one. It's a tight end state. Sean.
His own teammate, Isaac Jensen, is a tight end recruit for the next year. And then Vince Genatone's first cousin, Ludwig, out of Montana, is another tight end recruit. I mean, they are in high cotton with tight ends.
So Lofton's here, and then there's an edge rusher from Wichita coming in.
Yeah, another name I want to keep tabs on, and there's a lot this weekend. It's a bit. I want to emphasize this. They're all in on this weekend because you may not get another one. The Wisconsin game might be at 11 a.m. You don't know what you can do with that. We don't know that yet. But Hunter Higgins out of Wichita Mays South is a defensive end for 2026. Some outlets have him the number 1 player in Kansas.
Really?
Some have him at 8, some have him at 4. He's kind of all over the map, but he's got Oklahoma, Michigan, and Nebraska, among others, who have offered him. This is a guy that I actually recently put an RPM pick in to be a commit to Nebraska. So keep your eyes on Hunter Higgins, one of the top players in Kansas, a defensive lineman at 6'5", 225. I think he is a name that, if I had to put a chip down, I think he's a Husker when it's all said and done. And Sip, the Dawson Merritt conversation continues.
Yes.
And that's another one. Like, I would not be surprised if he ends up at Nebraska.
Well, think about this. I love this stuff so much. It's big. This is a big weekend. It's a big visitor weekend. Nebraska can get bowl eligible. Think about the good vibe in that building on Saturday night, Sean, with these recruits in town, Saturday night and Sunday morning. The vibe at Nebraska if they are able to beat UCLA. It's what Rules wants to tell these kids. He wants to show them what he's doing is working, and not just tell them, show them. Okay, now we're bowl eligible and we have 3 games left and there's a lot of pressure off. Let's see what this team can do. The recruits will pick up on that vibe. This is God. It's a huge game.
Yeah, because it's a 2:30 game, and then you could have like the evening to be with these recruits and their families, and
the vibe's good. It's not, you know how the vibe gets. I mean, come on, Sean. If Nebraska were to lose this game, you got to leave open a possibility, always, because this is a sport and you don't always get what you want. The vibe, if they lose, will be really rough. Scared, will be kind of scary in a way.
There's a big group of top Mississippi players coming up here well, with Lawrence Hopkins, the stepfather of Dante Dowdell, who's a trainer in that area down there. And I mean, these are 4-star level guys, like 3 or 4 of them coming up here for the game. So this is a big opportunity, and recruiting is so different now in terms of the timeline. And I'm talking 2026, because for a lot of these 2026s, you're trying to get them here to a home game. Then you want to get them back on your campus
in the summer.
Well, in the spring.
In the spring.
You want another visit in January, March, or April.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
That's your second crack.
Yeah.
Then you get them back in June and you close them.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a 3-pronged step for
these
out-of-state people that come from a long distance. You get them here for a game, you get them here for a springish type visit, and then you get them here for a June visit, and then you close.
It's a huge. This visitor weekend is a huge part of this weekend. I mean, it's not always that way. Like you said, it's not going to be this way necessarily in the next 3 games or the last home game.
And they've gone all in it. And Brian Munson has already put some good lists together on the visitors. So get on the website, HuskerOnline. We'll have more coverage of the visitors all throughout the weekend from Brian. But major recruiting weekend for Nebraska.
And Sean, I want to say one thing. I don't want to sound alarmist if they lose, but some of this, when we talk like this, is just reality based. This is reality.
It's a 7-point spread or 6.5-point spread.
Well, and what I'm talking about is just the possibility of losing. I mean, life isn't always easy. It doesn't always go like you think. Us talking about the possibility of losing is what it is. It's a big weekend. This is a big game for Nebraska. You can mock UCLA all you want. You can look at this any way you want. I only look at it as huge. This is a gigantic game for Nebraska's program.
To get an 8-year monkey off their back.
Right.
I've used this analogy about our state with kids. Kids from grades 1st grade through 8th grade right now, that period of window when they were going to school, I've not seen, like an 8th grader in Nebraska has not seen Nebraska go to a bowl game since they were in 1st grade. And think about your childhood, how big that window was from 1st to 8th grade, how much that window shaped your sports memories and sports love.
Absolutely. And here, I'm going to close this headline.
Did you write a sermon there, preacher?
Well, I just went back and I wrote down all of Coach Rule's key comments. And this is what he said on Monday. To be honest, this is Coach Rule. I think this game will tell us where we are coming off these last 2 weeks. It's gonna tell you.
It's a measuring stick.
It's gonna tell you these four games are gonna tell you a lot about the progress this program is or isn't making. I mean, it's time. November's gigantic. He told his kids that the big months are November, December, and January in college football. For Nebraska, December and January have been dark, null and void. The void.
Yeah, you send your team home at Thanksgiving.
It's horrifying to drive by that place in December and see it dark.
You basically lose your team from Thanksgiving to Martin Luther King Day.
Bam. You just said it. Can't have that.
I mean, they lift a little bit here, but you know what I'm saying.
No, there's not much activity over there.
Yeah, a lot of
you don't want a dark training facility in December. You don't want that.
All right. Before we go to headline 5, Sip, HuskerOnline headlines brought to you by who?
Oh, Sean, Larson Motors. Hold on here. Let me get my, if you're looking, Sean, Larson Motors, if you're looking for a new vehicle, how about going to Nebraska City?
It's the bye weekend next week too.
Oh God, there you go. just take a nice little trip to Nebraska City to Larson Motors. It's one of the Midwest's only dealerships with all the major brands in one location. I talk about this every week. Finding your new Chevrolet, GMC, Dodge, Chrysler, Ford, Hummer, Jeep, or Ram never has been easier. Start your new experience today or the bye week at LarsonMotorGroup.com or at Larson Motors in Nebraska City. Larson Motors, real people,
real deals.
Real
Thank
deals.
you, Mr. Stephen M. Sipple.
Get a truck.
All right, let's get into
Get a light duty.
Get a light duty. Is it Chevy Colorado?
Yes,
and then the GMC one's the Canyon.
Yeah. And it's a very reliable truck. And I don't need a boat at this stage of my life.
Sporty.
Yeah. Sport.
It's what's the word? It can make turns. You don't have to
it's
like
maneuverable.
Yeah,
Is that the word you're looking for?
I mean, I have a full size SUV. It's hard to back out of spot.
Thank you. I don't need that.
All right.
Not at this stage of my life.
Headline number 5, odds and ends, as we always do. One thing I want to hit on before we get into the Big Ten games. Did you see this thing about the headset technology? And there's been like people that have tapped into headset technology.
Like truckers in Texas can hear the plays being called by Texas Tech coaches.
What the hell's going on?
Well, it's frequency stuff. I mean, I guess the frequencies get out somehow. I don't know. I have heard.
I will say for 1 year, I was Nebraska's sideline reporter. Many probably don't even remember that. It was 2007 season.
I do remember it, Sean.
And you have a wireless mic in the stadium. And I was in Boulder. It was Bill Callahan's final game at Nebraska. And for whatever odd reason, my microphone like picked into the frequency for the whole stadium. Ooh. So I'm doing my report and I'm on the PA at Folsom Field in the whole stadium.
That I do not remember that.
It was pregame, and I quickly shut down because I was going to give a report that was kind of some intel. I'm like, I can't say this on the loudspeaker. I'll be giving.
That's an incredible story.
Dan Hawkins some insight before kickoff.
Did someone shut you down, or did you?
I heard it, and I turned my mic off. And Mike Elliott was our producer. Greg Sharp was calling the game, and it was Lane Grindle and Matt Davison and Adrian Fiala, and we were on the call. And I went back up to the booth. I'm like, I got to get my frequency fixed. I'm on the speaker for the whole stadium.
Yeah, what I heard of some Texas team, maybe Texas Tech, that they're like play callers were being like the truckers driving through the state could hear them. Now, a lot of truckers wouldn't know what's going on. They wouldn't recognize that lingo.
They got bigger fish to fry.
Well, that and this, it's just guys calling plays. Some people wouldn't recognize at all what's going on. I think you would. You'd be like, what is this? Is this like Texas Tech staff calling plays against Baylor?
The thing is, if they were like 27 whiskey trot tango alpha dog blitz break, I mean, like it'd be, how would you know what that means?
Right. But it's, yeah.
Unless you're Connor Stallions.
Odd.
All right. Well, let's get into the Big Ten games. Matt Rule did say, though, they sent their headsets in to get like a software update.
Really?
Everybody did. So like they're aware of it here and they've addressed it. But another thing from Matt Rule today, Malcolm Hartstog will not play.
Ooh.
Hamstring.
Oh, he's out.
Yeah. Tommy Hill doesn't sound promising on him. That doesn't surprise me, though, Tommy Hill.
Okay. Malcolm Hartstog. Now he hasn't always graded well, but he's a valuable part of that defense.
Jeremiah Charles will start at corner.
Wow.
Something to watch.
Oh, yeah.
Tommy Hill, I'm not counting on him to play. And then Turner Corcoran hasn't practiced yet, and it will be his own decision if he wants to redshirt and come back next year. So nothing new on that front. But
big game for Jeremiah Charles.
Big Jeremiah Charles will step in there. But let's odds and ends. I want to go right back to the Big Ten games this weekend. We already kind of hit on Penn State, Ohio State.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Massive game.
11 a.m.
Do you want to tell me who you're picking?
I pick Penn State in this game because I just don't think Ohio State can go in there with a run game that's struggling
and the injuries on the O-line.
Injuries up front. 2 left tackles out down to the third left tackle. They shuffled the line. And if you've watched Penn State, if you just look at their personnel, just turn on the TV and look at their defensive line and tell me what you think. It looks like the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're tough up front. I think Penn State wins this game.
And they're a dog. I would call it a reputation dog. People still give that Ohio State roster a ton of respect.
Well, yeah, they're
I mean, they're loaded with personnel.
Yeah.
But how inspired is that personnel?
Wow. I don't know.
Are they playing like paid mercenaries that are kind of only out for them? Are they playing because they love Ohio State?
We're going to find out, and don't listen to my picks because my picks have been terrible this year. But I do like what it's worth. For what it's worth, I like Penn State.
I don't know the injury situation in Champaign, but how is Minnesota a 3-point favorite at Illinois?
I don't get it.
I'm picking Illinois. I'll tell you that right now.
I am too. I'm picking Illinois too. But this is what that is you're showing PJ Fleck a lot of respect. Vegas is showing PJ a lot of respect, and he has done a great job with Minnesota. Minnesota's been kind of a surprise. I mean, but that line seems like it jumped out to everybody.
What about Indiana at Michigan State? Indiana is a 7.5-point favorite. Is Rourke back for sure? They
don't know that. This is where you begin to find out about Indiana. This is the kind of game that you kind of see what they're all about. Michigan State is, as we've established, is tough up front. We watched them from the Longhorn Steakhouse and
great meal
in Bloomington, I think. It was a great meal.
Suburbs of Indianapolis.
Yeah, we watched them
in the parking lot of a Home Depot.
Surprisingly good steak, though. It was. The salad was crisp. The lady gave you the remote control. I don't know what it is about you with remote controls. I've been to 2 sports bars with you, and you've had the remote control in your hand, which I've never seen at a sports bar.
They hand it over to an expert.
Yeah. This is, you start to find out about Google me.
I think Indiana could win by 14 points.
I don't.
You think they're going to get beat?
No, I don't know if they'll get beat, but I think they struggle to win this. Michigan State's tough. They're a tough team. It's tough to go in there and win that game. What time is it?
2 first-year head coaches, 2:30 on the Peacock. 2 first-year head coaches with lots of portal players.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of the portal bowl. I mean, there's a lot of new players on those teams from a year ago. Michigan is a 15-point home dog.
Michigan.
Against Oregon.
Oh.
I mean, win in the big house is Michigan a 15.
Never.
And
never.
Call me crazy, but you think there'll be some empties there? Or they just beat Michigan State.
No, don't think there'll be empties because of the opponent. It's still a big game. They're still 1 year removed from a national championship.
Yeah, you're right. The bad take by me.
No, it's not a terrible take. It's not. I mean, but I don't think there'll be. You won't. It's kind of like Nebraska. When Nebraska was still selling out, it wasn't like a jam-packed sellout. You know,
a little bit more butt room.
Yeah, a little more butt room is a good way to put it.
USC is a 2.5-point road dog at Washington. We'll watch that game closely because that's Nebraska's next opponent, and we could learn that kickoff on Monday. And I think the kickoff for that game is a big piece to that game as well. Can Nebraska get lucky and get a 2:30 Central game out there, or is it going to be a night game?
What kind of night game are you like when you say night game? What time?
I mean, best case scenario is a 6:30 Central, which is 4:30 local.
Mm-hmm.
But the worst case scenario is like they play that game at like 6 local, 8 Central, like a late game.
I don't want to think about that right now. USC's obviously scuffled.
We'll drive around after the game in the neighborhoods around.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
The Coliseum and see how we do. We had a rough go of it in Columbus, by the way.
Yeah, that'll be post-election too. Let's probably just cover the game in that. USC's been banged up on defense. I mean, Lincoln Riley's record in the last 15 games, you'd be surprised how bad it is. He needs wins. There won't be that fan base doesn't look for a program. They don't get enthused about a program that's trying to eke into a bowl game. They expect to be playing for the college football playoff. So I don't know.
It's at the Rose Bowl, or it's at Washington too. The game.
That's a game.
It's loud there.
Yeah, watch that one closely.
Okay, and then it's a night game. Then Wisconsin, Iowa. I'm really intrigued because this is kind of a game for Nebraska. I mean, that game Nebraska plays both those teams down the stretch. Iowa has been up and down. Wisconsin's gotten hot, but then they fell back a step. Wisconsin still has Oregon.
Yeah. I saw a stat today that blew me out of the water. This is November 2nd. This game's on November 2nd. Iowa's record in November since 2019, 19-1. 19-1. Iowa's record
that's with the Big Ten West, though.
Yeah, that's true.
And all the November games were generally Big Ten West games.
The other thing about this game, and you know where I'm going, Iowa, this is what scares me about Iowa is in terms of the Nebraska playing them down the road. They made the quarterback change. To Brendan Sullivan. And I think they're going to benefit greatly from it. And I think Iowa fans.
Didn't he only throw for like 70 yards or something?
Did, but he can run it a little bit.
A little moxie.
Yeah. And I think Iowa fans are going to be saying, why didn't you do this earlier?
Well, there's where the NIL, when you financially invest into a guy.
In McNamara.
And Cade McNamara as your player, it's hard to bench the guy you put the money on.
Yeah.
That's the new world, right? And
it is.
It leads me to my next topic here. Pat Narduzzi at Pitt just basically flat out said, yeah, we're doing our NIL essentially as pay for play. Like we have a base model that everybody gets paid.
Mm-hmm.
Then at the end of the year, you'll be taken care of accordingly.
Well, yeah.
That's a stretch of what NIL is supposed to be.
Well, it is. Well, but I mean, it's not like Pitt's the only team doing it. Everybody's doing it. He's just verbalizing it. Now, what he did, though, Sean, that's not the story. The story is he basically told some guys, look, you're not getting paid. You got to perform. We'll talk at the end of the year. All right. And he, by the way, changed his whole offensive staff, including firing Frank Signetti, the brother of Kurt Signetti. So they were 3-9 last year, Pitt, 7-0 this year. He changed his approach to NIL, where everybody was getting paid last year. It didn't work out very well. He brought in, there were guys coming to him and said, I want money. He said, sorry. It's basically got to be performance based now. Pretty novel idea. And it's worked, but if it's worked because they're winning.
And I will say this though, like, it would be easy for an 18, 19-year-old, if you're giving him $100,000, $200,000 to kind of get fat and happy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And think they're in and not work as hard as maybe they should.
Right.
I mean, very few young people would have the discipline to say, this is just the start. I'm going to really maximize, the next things.
Yeah. So Narduzzi just kind of changed the approach to it, and it's worked. They're 7-0. They're one of the biggest stories of the college football season. They play SMU this weekend. SMU is also undefeated in the ACC. SMU, I think, has one loss overall. Huge game for Pitt. Pitt's a huge story. They look good on defense.
Yeah, and College Game Day actually chose to go to Ohio State, Penn State over that SMU Pitt game.
Good choice.
Yeah, and like I get it. Like there's a story there, but the ratings and the interest are still Ohio State, Penn State, and that is the reality. If you're not in the Big Ten or the SEC, those games just don't generate the eyeballs.
Right. Pitt is not a quote unquote marquee program, although surprisingly they are top 20 all time in wins.
Yeah, they've got a lot of history, but
yeah, they have some history.
I mean, you look at like just some of these ratings, like Oregon State Cal on ESPN2, a 4 p.m. game, only drew 183,000 viewers.
You're kidding me. Compare that to Nebraska, Ohio State.
Well, yeah, Nebraska, Ohio State almost drew
6 million.
Yeah, and Syracuse, Pittsburgh, that was a Thursday night standalone game on ESPN.
What'd that draw?
948,000.
It didn't draw a million.
No. 7 p.m. Central, Kansas State. What do you think that drew?
7 p.m. Central, Kansas, 1.5.
708,000.
It showed, okay, this is an informative conversation. It shows you why the Big Ten and the SEC flex like they do. Now people are probably going to say, Sipple, you're talking about Nebraska, Ohio State too. I mean, one of them's ranked 4th in the country. I get that, but 6 million versus
so the top 7 rated games, all but one were Big Ten SEC. The one that wasn't, take a guess, Notre Dame.
Yeah. See, there you go. That's what TV executives look at.
I mean, I have said this on the show. College football is controlled by 6 things: 11 a.m. Fox, 2:30 CBS, 6:30 NBC, 11, 2:30, 6:30 ABC.
Those are surprising numbers for the Big 12 to me, though.
Colorado is keeping the Big 12. Colorado did 2.34 million in like a 10 o'clock at night game. So they're right in the Colorado numbers
Deion.
to boost them a little bit. Like TCU, Texas Tech, that was their marquee television game, and that drew 2.36.
That's pretty good.
But Nebraska, Ohio State at 11 a.m., it had over 9.5 million at one point peak, but the physical rating was just under 6. So, all right. Well, should be a good one, Mr. Sip.
Well, big game.
I keep calling you Mr. Sip. I hope that doesn't.
It doesn't bother me one bit. This game is gigantic. I really can't wait. I'd like to see Nebraska get to a bowl game.
I want to start talking bowl trips with you.
I know.
I want to start planning like fun bowl trip things.
I know. And this should be it. They should do it. Now, I'm not in a camp, though, that says if they lose, the sky's falling. I'm not going to do that. They still have 3 games left. And they're all winnable. But this would be good. They should get this one.
And we'll be back after the game. HuskerOnline post-game live. Game will end around 6.
Okay, yeah, when are we going to do this?
I think we're going to shoot 8:30-ish, 8:45, 9, and that 8:30 to 9 window is probably when we'll start.
8:30.
Depending on the play, the pace of the game. But if you're not a member of HuskerOnline, try us out. We got a great deal. We're going to give you $40 off an annual subscription, $40, by simply using the promo code Husker40. That's $40 off an annual subscription to HuskerOnline. That's the best deal you're going to get. Use that promo code Husker40. For Steve Sipple, I'm Sean Callahan, signing off for HuskerOnline Headlines.